am very glad to have the opportunity to participate in the series and to meet all of you. Thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me. Since we are all performers and teachers, I have chosen a topic that has intrigued me for a very long time. My topic today has two parts. The first part is about us as performers who interpret and share a great diversity of styles and genres of compositions. The second part is about us as teachers who aim to nurture the next generation of artists to both preserve our traditions of playing music and also to bring new interpretations into the world. The overarching question is, how do we cohesively approach variety? In developing our standards of musical technique and expression, how and to what extent can we bring a consistent approach to very different musical material and possibilities? I'd like to play 3 short phrases from the solo violin literature for you to illustrate some of the variety of the standard repertoire. These are excerpts from Bach, the E major gavotte in the 3rd partita for solo violin, the opening of Kreisler's Recitativo and Scherzo, and the opening of Pierre Boulez's Anthem. As you can hear, these are very different pieces from very different musical time periods, and clearly each composer has developed a unique language of expression. However, I would say that all 3 phrases are also part of the broader language of music. For example, some of the things they have in common are the use of pitches rising and falling or staying the same, of greater or lesser dissonance, of rhythmic sustain or repetition, pulse, for example. By understanding the underlying musical principles, I can play each specific piece better. At the same time, playing a specific work helps me deepen my sensitivity to the broader language. I don't feel that I need to switch gears to perform different works. I am able to perform them as myself. One way to do this is to be sensitive to the musical structure. In my interpretation, I aim to bring out the interesting, unexpected, and unique elements of the score. I could talk about this much longer, but for today I would just like to add, if I were able to define my system of interpretation very precisely, then it would theoretically be possible to program a computer to make the sounds and execute my interpretation. I would have created a system to navigate many musical works. For example, I could program it to increase the volume a bit on dissonance within consonants, such as when I play the opening of Bach, which I could do also in Boulez, which is more consonant in the beginning than the middle of the run. Now, when I'm talking about creating such a system of programming computers, I'd just like to be clear that I'm not talking about anything to do with artificial intelligence, which develops its algorithm from imitation, but rather a rigorous, conscious, human-driven programming of the algorithms. In other words, a knowledge of definition of interpretation. At the same time, even if I were able to do it to such an extreme degree, I believe that there would be something missing. For example, how would I know that something should sound wild, such as the opening of Anthem? Or, as Pierre Boulez told me, it should sound like a lightning. After all, we perceive music with our live emotions, and so we play better when we use them too. This brings me to our role as teachers. How do we keep our own interpretations and our own system of interpretation and help each of our students create their own so that we do not sound like identical pre-programmed computers? If we all sounded the same, the world would be a very boring place. Every Mozart concerto will sound perfect, and if we've heard one, we've heard them all. So, how do we not only create our own interpretation, but also foster different interpretations from our students? How do we decide which interpretations we consider good? And how do we support our students to find their own voice? I personally was lucky to be supported by my teachers, two of which played a most formative role in my life. One was Dr. Lise Elson in Calgary, with whom I studied from ages 4 to 12 and later in the summers as well. I have her to thank for many things, including a joy of music and a strong technical foundation. The other was Sally Thomas at the Juilliard School in New York City, and I remember my first studio class with her very clearly. It was the first time I heard her other students who had studied with her for several years already. I noticed right away that they all sounded excellent and were very distinct from each other. So I'd like to play two short examples of that first Bach Gavotte I played from two of her most famous students. The first is James Ennis, and here's James Ennis. And the second one is Kyang-Wha Chung. And so you can hear the difference in the two interpretations. The first one is very strong and stately, and the second one is perhaps more pensive and a little more wild. I personally lean a little bit more to sprightly and joyous in this piece, but as I listened to both James Ennis and Kyang-Wha Chung playing it, I recognize how good it sounds and different. I enjoyed my lessons with Sally Thomas very much, in large part because I felt that she saw me for me. Miss Thomas recognized the person inside the violinist and supported us in becoming our own musicians. Expressivity played a key role in our lessons. Even when we practiced technique, which we did rigorously, there was a focus on the expression it created, the way it helped us to communicate. Here is an example from practicing the martelé bow stroke, which was really foundational. It should sound bold and strong, and not just well executed, but also have that very forthright quality. I would like to add that she had worked closely together with her own mentor, Ivan Galamian, creating many of his editions, and whose very famous book is called The Principles of Violin Playing. I believe there is great wisdom in his choice for the title in the word principle. A principle explains which things are the way they are and cannot be changed, such as the physics behind sound production or the mechanics of finger motion, but it leaves flexibility and freedom around what to do with that information, how to serve the expressive goals. I remember many lessons when the instruction was not, for example, play joyously, but actually be more joyous here. We became the music and playing a direct expression of ourselves. Of course, I have many more things I could say about interpretation and about fostering our students' interpretations, But let me leave it here for today. Thank you very much for listening.